how do I deal with my resentment towards my parents when due to their inaction when I told them I had a porn addiction at 16? And do I tell them about it, that I resent them?
How old are you now?
I'm 31.
You've been hanging on to this one for a long, long time, huh?
I have.
How come?
Because I think that I was introduced to pornography pretty early on, and
by who?
A friend. We were both 8 years old, and she saw it on her parents' computer, and it just turned into a full-blown addiction up until even all the way through my mid-20s to late 20s. I feel like I dealt with a lot of shame and depression from it, and I feel like that took a lot of years from my life, nearly all of my 20s. And now that I'm starting to get my life back on track, I feel like I mourned how much time I lost due to dealing with the depression and shame and all of that came from having a porn addiction.
And how have you reconciled blaming your parents for this?
So at 16 years old, I told them that I was dealing with a porn addiction. And so at 16, I told them, and then they just were kind of like, yeah, you got to stop. And didn't really do much with that information. And so fast forward a few years later, my sister had told me that at the time, she's 5 years older than me, so she was 21. She told my mom, she was like, hey, I think you actually should put Nika in counseling and kind of figure out why she's having this porn addiction. And my mom said, well, who am I going to go to that won't tell our business?
Okay.
And so it kind of felt like image was more important than me getting help.
Okay. So let's say that's true. Let's say you came to your parents at 16 and you laid it out for them. This is about 2010, 2009, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said, I need some help. And they said, well, we got you. Just quit doing that.
Yeah.
And now that you're 30, do you have your own kids?
No, not yet.
Okay. So you're looking back and saying, man, I wish I had done that differently.
Yeah. I think if I had handled the problem earlier, I just think that my life would be a little bit different. I don't know why I feel that way, but
it probably would have been. And also, there was let's say 18, or let's say 21. There was a decade of agency there that you had as an adult, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And my guess is that pornography was a way to feel some sort of aliveness in your skin inside of a house that didn't allow you to breathe. This wasn't the only thing your parents edged you out of, right?
Right.
Right. So pornography is a symptom. Actually, pornography was a solution to a teenager, to a child desperate for connection, desperate for life and breath in their own lungs inside their own house.
Yeah.
So if we're going to blame, let's blame all the way. And the bigger question is this. Paint me a picture of your fantasy of how this conversation would go.
Of me telling them how I feel it is.
Yeah, tell me how this whole thing will play out. From start to finish. You're sitting where?
Probably in their living room.
All right, so they're in the living room. They're in their recliners that they always sit in. And you walk in and say what?
If I can talk to you for a minute, I just have something to get off my chest. I felt really let down that at 16, when I came to you guys, that I had a porn addiction, that it was not really handled and just swept under the rug. And how that has affected me through the years. And I guess for some context, I am first generation American. My parents are Nigerian. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes there's a shame-based culture, but there's also a real big hesitancy for elders to kind of acknowledge sometimes when they've wronged their children.
Okay. But this is going to be your big moment. Against years of culture, first-gen parents dealing with something that many people didn't even acknowledge in the scientific literature until just maybe a decade ago, which is women can get addicted to visual pornography too.
Yeah.
And so, but like, you're going to have this one conversation, this moment, this 31. So you tell your parents, let's play out two scenarios, okay? Close your eyes and imagine you're there in the living room. You're letting them have it. I came to you when I was 16. I told you I had this problem with pornography. Dad, you told me just stop.
Yeah.
And you didn't come rescue me. 16 years old, I needed you. Now, here's scenario one. Mom and dad stand up and they say, you are right. We wronged you. We're so sorry. We messed this up and we blew it and we love you and we're glad you're still here. And they give you a hug. What does that change about you right now, Amy, in the seat you're sitting in right now talking to me on the phone? What does that get you?
I think just validation that they dropped the ball.
So let me ask you, why are you still going back to them for validation? You've been seeking that validation since you were a little bitty girl. You're still outsourcing your well-being to people who have demonstrated over and over for a number of different reasons. We can't give it to you.
Unless you're perfect.
Do what?
I said they'll give you validation if you're perfect.
There's no such thing as that.
Wrong. Yeah.
There's no such thing as that.
Yeah. That I guess I'm just saying that's just the house I grew up in. It was just very critical.
Mm-hmm. And it's easy to think that's because you're first gen, it's because you have immigrant parents, because there's cultural. It's just, I mean, more people than not call the show, and they grew up in very critical homes. Parents unequipped for the world that their kids inhabited.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question for you again, at a 31-year-old, and let's play out scenario number 2. You go in and you let them have it. And they say, hey, we barely even spoke the language. We were doing the best we could with what was going on. We didn't even know what you were talking about when you said porn addiction. We didn't even know girls could do that 15 years ago. We didn't even have support resources. What were we supposed to do? Get out, you ungrateful kid. So picture that response. Does that still make you feel better? Does that give you permission to finally be enraged with them like you want to be?
I mean, I guess not.
In either of those scenarios, here's where you still find yourself. And this is a wild situation. It's a wild thing, okay? You still find yourself anchored to them.
Yeah.
You still are looking for validation that yes, they blew it and they finally call it out and acknowledge it, or you're asking for them to respond negatively so you finally have permission to just be enraged and hate them. Both of those scenarios still require them to do something to make you feel okay about being in your own skin.
Yeah.
And that feeling of not being okay in your own skin is what pornography lets you escape from for your whole life.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So my big question is, when is the moment going to come when Amy can look in the mirror and exhale and drop her shoulders and say, I love this woman?
I don't know. I feel, I mean, I'm very critical of myself too.
Sure, that's like their words became your words.
Yeah. And so anything that I did wrong in life, I just pretty much held it against myself, or still do. And it's like this, I can place the blame on somebody else, and I don't know. It's like I'm looking for somebody to blame.
And what all that's doing is robbing you of living your full life right now. It's easier to say, I'm not married, I don't have kids, I'm not in grad school, whatever the things you want to do, because they fill in the blank.
Yeah.
It's harder to say, these things happened to me and they were real and awful and scary and bad, and I get to choose what happens next.
Yeah.
So here's what I'll tell you. The absolution you are hoping for will not be found in a singular conversation.
Okay.
I've never met somebody who had their last I told you so conversation and they felt great leaving it. That doesn't mean they don't exist. Especially for people who that probably can't hear it. I've only, in fact, heard them say it made me feel worse. When I finally, I let them have it, that they walk away feeling a little bit smaller than they did. I'm sure there will be people who comment on the YouTube section here that says, no, actually, I told somebody off and it felt great and powerful, or whatever. I haven't met those people.
Well, I didn't plan on telling them off or being rude. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to tell them how it made me feel, but not be rude or disrespectful or anything like that.
How did you end up kicking the habit?
When I got in my 20s, I went to counseling myself.
Okay. So you began to parent the child that needed parenting all along.
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't you trust that young woman?
I mean, I've just kind of done a lot of things wrong. I sometimes don't trust my own judgment.
What did you do wrong?
I mean, it's taken me such a long time. I'm finally getting into medical school.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I barely, I don't know. I just had a lot of.
And no. Answer the question. What did you do wrong? Looked at pornography as a kid?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. You're a kid. You're a child. 8 through 18, 10 years. You're trying to figure out up from down. You got to let your child off the hook here.
Yeah.
You were introduced to a drug at 8 years old that was far more powerful than you. You can't be 31 holding yourself accountable for stuff you looked at when you were 14 years old.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? And then when you finally took control of your life in your 20s as an adult, that's an act of bravery and courage. That's hard.
Yeah. I think that I dealt with a lot of sense of unworthiness.
Yeah.
And so,
but that's not from the pornography. The pornography was a symptom. That sense of unworthiness is time and time again you went to your parents and said, I want, and they said, yeah, we're not doing that. Fair?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. You won't find that sense of worthiness by going back to that same dry well.
Yeah.
You will find it in a group of friends and community and whatever else, like faith community, whatever else you're anchored to now moving forward in a sense of ownership and purpose for what comes next in your life. I guess my recommendation for you is to, with what you can, look forward for who you can become and who you're becoming, and not, I need to go back and have all these old conversations, unless you're making amends. I'm really grateful for the call, Amy. But see what happens about exhaling and saying, I love this woman who I've become and who I'm becoming. I'm going to spend my energy having conversations with her about where we're going, not finding old people from the past to say, here's what y'all did.